I'm 32 years old, and I live in Los Angeles, California. The call hit at 9:08 p.m., right when my dryer finished its cycle, and my apartment smelled like warm detergent. Caller ID, County Hospital. Not a number, not a name, a label. I answered anyway. A polished recorded voice filled my ear, smooth enough to pass for any official line I'd ever waited on. Emergency department. Patient, Marcus Hale. Consent required to treat. Press 1 if you are on your way. My father's name. My throat tightened so fast it felt like swallowing wrong. I pressed 1. Thank you. If you do not arrive within 30 minutes, treatment may be delayed. Click. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. I called Dad. No answer. Again, nothing. I didn't even think. My body moved first. Shoes, keys, phone charger in my pocket by habit. I slid the deadbolt, stepped into the hallway, and armed my alarm panel on the way out. The keypad chirped twice. The screen flashed away. I didn't drive toward the hospital. I drove toward the nearest thing that could tell me the truth. The main switchboard number I'd saved from the last time my father pretended he didn't need stitches. Ringing. A real person. County operator. I got an automated call about my dad. Marcus Hale. I'm not asking for details. I just need to know if he's there. Typing. A pause long enough to hear other phones in the background. No Marcus Hale. My hands tightened on the wheel. One more check. 63. North Hollywood. Grey hair. Stubborn. No Marcus Hale. Wrong. I called Dad again. This time, he picked up on the second ring. Hello. Sleepy. Confused. Alive. Are you hurt? What? Are you in a hospital? No, I'm in bed. What are you talking about? My stomach dropped, then kept falling. I got a call. A recorded call. It said you were brought in. Silence on his end. Then the small sound of him sitting up. That's not real. I'm turning around. Don't open your door for anyone. Don't answer unknown calls. Don't drive like an idiot. I made a sound that could have been a laugh, but it didn't come out right. I turned the car around. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you. If you do not arrive within 30 minutes, treatment may be delayed. Same sentence. Same cold corporate tone turned into pixels. My mouth went dry, like I'd tasted copper. When I reached my street, my headlight swept across my front door. It wasn't wide open. It wasn't closed. It sat in that in-between position, latched by nothing, like someone had pulled it shut without caring if it caught. Open. I didn't get out. I didn't go closer. I sat in my car with my hands shaking against the steering wheel and dialed 911. My front door is unlatched. I'm in my car. I think someone's inside. Are you safe right now? In my car. Stay there. Officers are on the way. My apartment building's hallway light flickered through my peephole window like a heartbeat. It took 5 minutes. It felt like 50. 2 officers came in quiet. No sirens. Flashlights low. They went up the steps and disappeared into my doorway. I watched their beams slide across my walls through the crack in the door like thin knives. I waited for shouting. I waited for footsteps running. I waited for anything. Nothing. One officer stepped back out and waved me up. Clear. Inside, the air smelled different. Not wrong exactly, just not mine. Like somebody else's deodorant had been in here, clean and sharp, riding on the warm air from my heater. Nothing looked ransacked. No drawers dumped. No couch cushions tossed. It took me a second to understand what that meant. They'd had time. They'd been careful. My laptop was gone. The small fireproof pouch from my closet passport, birth certificate, insurance paperwork, gone. And the spare key to my car that I kept rubber-banded inside a junk drawer. Because I'm the kind of person who tells myself it's smart. Even when it's really fear. Gone. My alarm hadn't screamed once. The officer's flashlight paused on the keypad by the door. Any chance you gave your code to someone? I stared at that little screen like it had betrayed me. Only 2 people knew it. Me and my ex. The officer's eyes shifted, just a fraction. Did you change it after the breakup? I didn't answer fast enough, because the answer was no. Because changing a code felt like admitting I'd been wrong about a person, and I'd never wanted to do that. After they left, I opened my alarm app with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. I'd never scrolled through the event history before. I didn't even know it kept one. A list of timestamps sat there like a heartbeat monitor. 9:07 p.m. Armed away. 9:18 p.m. Front door open. 9:19 p.m. disarmed. Entry delay cleared. 9:24 p.m. front door closed. 9:25 p.m. armed away. The system hadn't been bypassed. It had been used. I clicked the 9:19 entry. A small detail expanded beneath it. Disarmed by admin user JT, my ex's initials. My fingers went numb. I hadn't just never changed the code. I'd never changed the account owner either. He'd installed the system when we were still together. He'd used his email. He'd told me it was easier that way. And I'd believed him. I backed out and checked my porch camera recordings. At 9:18 p.m., a man in scrubs walked up holding a clipboard like he belonged here. He didn't look around. He didn't hesitate. He stood close enough that the camera caught the smooth edge of a plastic badge turned inward. He knocked once. Then he bent down, reached beneath my doormat, and pulled out a key. I leaned closer to the screen. I replayed it. Again, my stomach rolled. I didn't have a spare key under my doormat. At least I never put one there. I lifted the mat with shaking hands. Under it was a perfect, clean rectangle of concrete, dustless, like something had been sitting there long enough to make a shadow, a key-sized shadow. I stepped back, like the floor might bite me. On the clipboard in the video, a single sheet was clipped on top, big bold letters across the header, consent to treat, and in the lower corner, a scribbled set of initials, JT. I'm 45 years old, and I live in Queens, New York. The tapping started as a nuisance. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. Tap, tap, tap. It was 3 small knocks, always from the same place, behind my bathroom mirror, like somebody testing a wall. The first time, I blamed the building. Then it happened again. That's what you do in Queens. You make peace with noise the way you make peace with sirens. And again, 2:14. Not at the same minute every night. Nothing that neat. 2:18. 2. Always in that window when the city quiets down enough for you to hear your own thoughts. My bathroom smelled faintly of dust afterward, like someone had shaken plaster inside the wall. I didn't want to be the person who became a joke. I didn't tell anyone at first because it sounded stupid, but then the vent cover in the ceiling started sitting crooked, like it had been lifted and set back wrong. Not mine. One morning, there was a single dark hair in my sink. My hands went cold in a slow, creeping way. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I needed to know if I was imagining it. I went to the hardware store after work and bought a roll of blue painter's tape, a cheap magnetic contact sensor, and a little bag of baby powder. I put painter's tape over the vent screws. I stuck the contact sensor inside the mirror frame, the kind people use for cabinets, so it would chirp if the mirror shifted. I put a thin dusting of powder along the top edge where the cover met the ceiling, barely visible unless you knew to look. Then I sat in my living room with the lights off, the bathroom door cracked open, and my phone in my hand like it was a weapon. At 2:17 the taps came. Tap, tap. A soft chirp followed, thin, electronic. The mirror sensor. The bathroom vent cover moved, not by much. My breath stopped. Then, 2. Powder drifted down in a pale, slow sprinkle, catching the nightlight glow like fog. A millimeter. Something was pushing from above. Then the faintest scrape, like fabric dragging along wood. A pause. I turned the bathroom light on. I stood without thinking and crossed the hall on feet that felt too loud. My body went rigid. Nothing moved. My eyes went up. The vent cover sat there, like it had always been there. A clean finger-width swipe through it. I reached up, pulled the cover down. The powder line was disturbed. Warm air breathed out of the opening. Stale and human. Not steam. Not pipes. Breath. I didn't scream. I didn't call out. My flashlight beam caught the inside of the duct. Dust, old insulation, and then something that made my brain refuse reality for a second. A knuckle. I lifted my phone, hit record, and pointed the camera up into the dark hole. Bare skin, close enough that the pores were visible. The hand withdrew fast, like it had been burned. I backed up so hard my shoulder hit the door frame. I ran into my bedroom, slammed the door, and called 911 with shaking fingers. Are you safe right now? Someone is in my vents. I just saw a hand. I'm locked in my bedroom. I didn't leave the room until I heard heavy boots outside my door and the sound of voices filling my hallway. Officers are on the way. Then the locked basement door. They searched my unit first. Then the unit beside mine. They found nothing alive. A scuff on the basement utility door like a pry bar had worried it open. They found evidence. A thin extension cord snaking down through a gap behind my bathroom wall, cheap orange disappearing into the building's guts. A loose ceiling tile in the laundry room, pushed up and never set right. The cord wasn't plugged into some magical outlet in the chase. It was stealing power from somewhere else. The older officer stared at it, jaw tight. That's a lot of effort. I heard it for weeks, a slow exhale. I couldn't stop shaking. Yes, building super lives on site. A pause. Anyone else with keys? Maintenance. Contractors. Whoever he lets in. They told me the same thing I'd already known for days. Don't stay here tonight. I slept on my sister's couch with my coat still on, like I was waiting to be told to run again. I didn't. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in my life. I called in sick. Then I called my friend who worked security at a different building and borrowed a tiny camera, just a little black square with motion detection, because I needed proof that couldn't be argued with. I went back to my apartment in daylight. My stomach churned the whole time, like the place was already contaminated. I taped the camera inside the bathroom vanity, angled upwards so it could see the mirror frame and the vent cover. Then I left. The camera view shook slightly, like something had brushed the vanity. That night I didn't come back. I watched the live feed from my sister's couch, phone glowing in the dark, at 2:19 a.m. motion triggered. Then my bathroom mirror shifted, not from the bottom, from the top, like someone had hooked fingers over it from behind. A head appeared in the gap, not a stranger's face, not a homeless squatter. A man with a close-cropped haircut and a familiar posture. The building super. He moved like he owned the place. He glanced straight toward the camera once, eyes narrowing. He reached down and peeled off my painter's tape with practiced care like he'd done it before. Then he smiled, and the feed went black. My stomach flipped so hard I thought I'd vomit. A small smile, like a private joke. I'm 31 years old, and I live in Miami, Florida. The charger on my nightstand felt wrong the first time I picked it up. Heavier than it should have been, warmer than it should have been. I told myself it was nothing, because I'd only been in the Brickell condo for 4 days and I didn't want to be the kind of person who saw danger everywhere. Then, in the dark, I saw a tiny green pinprick inside the USB port. Not the normal glow of charging, a deeper light, like a heartbeat behind plastic. I sat up. The air conditioner hummed. The city hissed outside the glass. I unplugged it and held it near my face. The green dot blinked once, then went steady. I took it into the kitchen under the bright overhead light. There was a seam along the side, too clean. I slid a butter knife into it and twisted. Pop. Inside was a board, a lens the size of a peppercorn, and a tiny black module glued in like an afterthought. Camera. For a second, my skin went cold and tight, like my body was trying to shrink away from itself. Silence. I didn't throw it. I didn't smash it. I'm a paralegal. Evidence is a language I understand. I set it on a plate so I wouldn't touch it again. I photographed it from every angle. I filmed a quick clip of the seam, the pop, the lens proof that it hadn't been opened by me first. Then I did something that made my mouth taste like metal. I checked the condo's Wi-Fi router. The admin password was still set to the default, printed on a sticker. The kind of laziness that feels small until it's not. A device list loaded. 5 devices. Mine were 3. 2 were not. One was labeled with a string of numbers. The other had a name that made my stomach flip in a quiet, slow way. IP cam bedroom. I didn't breathe for a second. I unplugged the router. I turned off my phone. I stood in the kitchen with the charger in a zip bag and realized something simple. Someone expected me to stay asleep. Someone expected me to keep charging my phone. I packed fast bare essentials because I didn't want to touch anything else that might belong to whoever had put that charger there. Before I left, I did one more thing. I looked at the underside of the nightstand. A small strip of clear double-sided tape was stuck there, fresh and clean, like something had been mounted and removed recently, not the charger itself. Something that listened. I went down to the garage with my bag and my keys, and the kind of awareness that makes every shadow feel too specific. My car was the only thing that was truly mine in that building. I got inside, locked the doors, and sat for a full minute with my forehead against the steering wheel, trying to slow my heartbeat. Then my phone powered back on, gave me a notification I'd never seen before. AirTag found moving with you. A map appeared, showing a neat little line that matched my routes for the past 3 days. Grocery store, office, condo. My throat went dry. I turned on the flashlight and searched the car like my life depended on it. Under the seats, in the trunk, behind the trunk lining. Nothing. I got out, crouched, and looked beneath the rear bumper. There it was. A tiny black puck taped up out of sight, pressed into a crevice like it belonged. My hands shook as I peeled it off. The tape left a gummy residue that clung to my fingertips. I stared at the puck in my palm, thinking about how many places it had already followed me. Then I understood how a stranger could find my next address. I hadn't been found. I'd been carried. I drove to a crowded place, bright lights, cameras, people. A big grocery store parking lot where I wouldn't be alone. I didn't call the host. I didn't negotiate. I didn't want an explanation. I wanted distance. I found a new apartment 2 weeks later in a different part of the city. New lease, new building, new routine. I didn't reuse accounts. I didn't reuse passwords. I didn't even reuse my old email when I signed. I did everything right. And for a week, I started to believe the fear would fade the way bruises do. Then, on a Tuesday night, I woke up at 2:36 a.m. with my heart racing for no reason I could name. The room was dark. The air was too still. I sat up and listened. No footsteps, no tapping, no scraping, just the low hum of the AC and my own breathing. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The screen lit my hands. And the zip bag with the charger. The evidence I'd kept because it felt too important to let go, caught the glow. The plastic of the bag looked different. Thicker, tighter, like it had been resealed. I stared at it until my eyes burned. My stomach dropped. I hadn't opened it since the night I found it. I hadn't needed to. I pulled it close, hands shaking, and looked at the seam where the zip locked. A tiny flap of clear tape was pressed over it, perfectly aligned. New. My throat went dry. I opened it. Inside the bag, under the charger, stuck flat against the plastic with fresh tape, was a second tracker, smaller than the first, newer, cleaner, as if someone had used my own proof against me. I sat there in the dark, holding it, my skin crawling, one thought repeating until it stopped feeling like a thought and started feeling like a sentence someone else had whispered into my life. I hadn't been followed to the new address. I'd brought them with me. 3 stories. One theme, home invasion, not the loud kind, the kind that waits for permission. 1. Consent to treat. A fake hospital system call empties the house, and the alarm doesn't get bypassed, it gets used. 2. Behind the mirror. The tapping isn't pipes, it's a schedule built into the walls by someone with keys. 3. The evidence bag. A hidden camera is terrifying. Carrying the tracker yourself is worse. Which one messed you up the most? The call, the wall, or the charger? Rate each one from 1 to 10 in the comments. If you want the next anthology to be even meaner, like, subscribe, because the next set won't give you time to breathe.